friends from the Pacific Islands, from Australia, New Zealand, or other countries who are also joining us today. We're so glad to have you all, and I really hope on behalf of all the organizers, you're all keeping well, your family, your friends, your colleagues are doing well in the midst of these very difficult times, as especially we are facing here in India in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, of course, as you know, we are here for the webinar on cooperative tourism and the COVID-19 crisis. We're trying to look at the sustainable recovery measures that each one of us is putting in place to support the tourism sector in the Asia and Pacific. This, of course, is a webinar which has been planned by the International Cooperative Alliance's Asia and Pacific Office, along with the ICA-EU Partnership, hashtag #COPS4Dev in social media. Of course, in collaboration with our partners, the International Social Tourism Organization, ISTO, which is based in Brussels, Belgium, and Wayfairer.coop, which is a cooperative invested into regenerative tourism in Australia, who are all here to bring together interested stakeholders in cooperatives and the tourism sector in Asia and the Pacific region. We do hope over the next about 90 minutes or so, the participants in this discussion will help us to identify and evaluate the cooperative advantage in promoting the interests and the scope of the tourism industry in the region. Of course, without further delay, let me call upon the Regional Director for ICA Asia and Pacific, Mr. Balasubramanian Iyer, to give his opening remarks and the introduction and the scope for this very webinar. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mr. Iyer.
Okay, thank you, Mohit. And let me also add my welcome to everyone for joining us on this for this webinar on cooperative tourism and the COVID-19 crisis. It's appropriately addressed sustainable recovery measures to support the tourism sector in the Asia Pacific. Given where we are with the COVID situation, as Mohit mentioned, in India and also some other countries, this may not be the best timing to talk about tourism, but then there is never a best time. So I think it's good to talk about this today. For one thing which we noticed once the lockdowns were starting to get lifted, that was before each wave, the lockdowns get lifted. And what was noticed was the interest in travel. Given that people had been cooped up for such a long time, they were looking to go out. This was noticeable very much in India, and I'm sure it's the same case in other countries. People were looking to get out and explore. And also with the pace of vaccinations increasing, and this is going to be critical, authorities are starting to relax norms of behavior for people, especially those who have been vaccinated. And so we are going to see an interest in travel. One thing which was also noticed, given the restrictions on international travel, people were looking to explore opportunities within the country, were trying to discover new places within the country, and they were discovering, wow, in India itself, we have so many places which are there to explore. These are more in rural areas, not much explored. And they were interested to know more about these places. And also the experience which they wanted to have was not the typical you stay in a hotel or resort kind of an environment. They were looking to be much more engaged with the community. They were looking to explore what living life was in the other areas. And this is where I see where cooperatives have the advantage, because in most countries we are spread across. We are in remote areas, we are in villages, not just in the urban areas. And we also are there across sectors. So we cooperatives have the wherewithal to offer the packaged services which people are looking for. And two cooperative principles come to the fore for me in this. One is Principle 5, which talks about, apart from education and training, information to the public. And the second is the Principle 6, which talks about cooperation among cooperatives. And in addition, of course, the SDGs, which have been mentioned in the concept note. And let me just give an example of what I mean. We've had two youth summits. One we had in 2016, which were in Bali in Indonesia. And the second one was in a place called Pinamujagan in Cebu province. Please Google it if you don't know where it is. So what happened is for the youth summit, we had people from across the Asia Pacific attend in those good old days when we could meet in person. So when they were landed at the airport, they were received by the transport cooperative. And then from the transport cooperative took them to the hotel or the guest house or the resort, which was again managed by the cooperative. And so both pick up and stay was in a cooperative. And during the 2 or 3 days of the summit, youth went and visited cooperatives. They saw the handicraft cooperatives and artisan cooperatives in Bali, the savings and credit and agriculture cooperatives in Cebu. And they got to also engage with the local community and see that cooperatives were, what the range of things in which cooperatives were there. And they also were able to hear during the summit. The idea also was for them to hear from young people who started cooperatives. And in fact, during this cooperatives, we have the cooperative pitch where young people pitch an idea about what kind of cooperative they want to start. And in Bali, the pitch which won the first prize was from this province which I talked about in Cebu. And they wanted to start a tourism cooperative, but the tourism not just getting people from the city, but tourism for young people, tourism which would also expose them to agriculture, the rural areas, and why agriculture is important. So they were looking at sustainable agriculture, they were trying to combine tourism. And this won the first pitch. And so this young group, went back after winning and started this cooperative. So the tourism cooperative where they would get young people from colleges, universities to visit their rural area, enjoy the surroundings, understand agricultural cooperatives, and then go back and maintain the linkage. So this is one example where it's not just one tourism cooperative, but then in a way in which we can work together across the ecosystem. The opportunities I see are immense for cooperatives to leverage opportunities, which will open up when people who are looking to travel are looking for trusted cooperatives, trusted operators. They're looking for new places. They're looking for new experiences. And I think there is tremendous opportunity for cooperatives to be able to step in and work together and provide this opportunity. Not just for outsiders, but also for members of cooperatives. There are exchanges happening between members of cooperatives, but this can also be expanded to others. So I think for me, there is tremendous opportunity and scope for us to be working in this area in a sustainable way, as the title mentioned. So I'd like to thank our two partners in this webinar, the International Social Tourism Organization. I see their two ambitions. They talk about tourism for all and responsible tourism. This fits very well with what we are trying to achieve through this webinar. Wayfairer provides a new way for us to look at tourism. They talk about building the community well. It's not, yes, and that's the other thing which we can do in terms of being able to support communities, not just in terms of having visitors come in, but then how they're able to use that as an income generating opportunity. And we'll hear more about regenerative tourism, which is defined as having a net benefit, added value, not just in terms of volume, but value. So I think I'm looking forward to hearing about these presentations. And I'd also like to thank our member in Sri Lanka, the National Cooperative Council of Sri Lanka, which has started the Cooperative Tourism Promotion Bureau. They will give us an idea about what they're planning to do. And we also have many members from different countries: Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, all countries which have tremendous potential for tourism, and the opportunities are immense. So I'm looking to also hear from them. So thank you so much for joining us in this webinar. And I'd like to again use this opportunity to welcome you all and thank you for your interest.
So much, Mr. Iyer, for those very useful opening remarks to this meeting. With that, may I then request Ms. Isabel Noah, the President of the International Social Tourism Organization, to please deliver your keynote address on the developing the social tourism as an economic driver. Ms. Noah, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much for inviting us. It's an honor to be here and share our view of things with you. But first, I'd like to extend my greetings to the people who are suffering from the pandemic, especially in India, which we are all sadly seeing in the news that it's being hit very hard. I will try to be brief because what I would like to do, it's three of us that are staying here with you today. So I will be presenting the part where I explain very briefly what ISTO is, what we stand for, and why. So we are the International Social Tourism Organization. We were born in 1963 in Brussels. Yes, our first name was BITS, and now we stand for ISTO. You can call us ISTO, it's easier to pronounce. And what we do is we promote the accessible and responsible tourism for all, bringing together all the actors of the social, sustainable, and fair tourism from all over the world. That's why we are here today. We have members all over the world. We are in more than 40 countries. We have more than 100 and another 30 collaborators, and like researchers and educational institutions. And we have a specific alliance for that. I think it's important to say that our DNA, you see the flower on the left of your screen, is quality of life, accessibility, solidarity, fair business, and environment, which are aligned as well with the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations. This gives us the opportunity to bring our speech and our point of view to the main international institutions worldwide, like the European Commission, the UN WTO. So we represent these values in front of them. So our ambitions are promoting the development of tourism for all in a sustainable and responsible way, and make holidays accessible to as many people as possible. And we believe that this is a key moment for this particular item of our ambitions to be very present in the future of the reactivation of tourism. And we also promote and support tourism as at the service of people, communities, and territories. And we identify these terms with responsible, solidarity, fair, or community-based tourism, which is why we fit in this webinar that we are today. We would like to show a couple of that we would like to share a little bit with you, because we like to show how efficient social tourism programs are. For Brazil, they have through SESC, they they participate more than 1,100,000 people in social tourism programs. For example, in France, through the ANCVC, they have more than 11 million of total beneficiaries, plus euros in support to persons. I will just highlight a couple of them because they are too many. You can probably then read them with more time. But here, what we want to say, the main message of this slide is that social tourism programs and policies leaning and sustainable and responsible principles are a good system to activate in an efficient way the tourism, because it leans on a social benefit for people. It makes it accessible to people. It brings all the community, but it also impacts directly on the destinations, on the workers that are part of the tourism industry. And we all know that the value chain of tourism industry is one of the biggest of all sectors. So we work in a very inclusive sector, and these programs really have a direct impact. Please continue. Well, some considerations and challenges. Like I said, this is an effective tool for reactivating the demand. It reduces seasonality and maintains the economic activity. It's a catalyst for domestic and local tourism, which in the near future is key for the reactivation of tourism. And we have a 4S model that we name it precisely to implement this development and this reactivation of tourism, which is based on solidarity, sustainable and socially responsible and safe, which ensures the responsible future of tourism. Please continue. If you would like to know more about us, you can find us in our website, and then of course you can contact us directly. Just a few words regarding my previous speaker. I would like to highlight that yes, we absolutely agree that we are in a world pandemic, so this is time to learn from each other. We are all facing the same common, not the same because circumstances are different everywhere, but common challenges. And in ISTO, we believe that this is the time to learn from each other and to learn from the cooperative way of working. We will speak about it later. In my colleagues will talk about it later, but I would like to highlight that. So yes, visitors now want to feel like they belong to something, that they want to understand and integrate with the destination they are visiting, and therefore persons here are key, and the relationship between everyone that person is in touch with is key. Therefore, working collaboratively is key for the future of this new tourism that has to put people and persons in the center and help each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Noah, for your very kind words, and of course, to give a very broad introduction about ISTO and the work you've been doing of late. With this, I take an opportunity to invite our next presenter, which is Ms. I'm told Mr. Dr. Asanka, who was supposed to represent NCC, will not be able to join. So we have Ms. Madhushi Jayamali, representing the National Cooperative Council of Sri Lanka, who is here to share with us about the recently launched Cooperative Tourism Promotion Bureau. Ms. Jayamali, thank you so much for joining us. You can share your screen and share the slides, please.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hello, do you hear me, Mr. Mahi?
Yep. Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah. Thank you for giving this opportunity to us as the National Cooperative Council of Sri Lanka. We warmly welcome all of you in this present situation, COVID-19 pandemic. First, I want to get well wishes to all the COVID-19 patients, especially in India. As a National Cooperative Council, we launched recently Co-op Tourism Promotion Bureau in January. As a Sri Lanka, the National Cooperative Council is a apex level organization. In Sri Lanka, there are 21.2 million population, and there are 352 cooperatives in Sri Lanka, but there are no tourism cooperative established recently, so that our chairman is supposed to develop a tourism promotion bureau to give as an organization and to give a special service to cooperative sector and the tourism sector. As a National Cooperative Council, we are giving education and training activities to the cooperatives with our regional training centers. And recently, we established Cooperative Tourism Bureau to given as a corporate tourism promotions. It is implemented as a smart office concept at the National Cooperative Council. We are planning to represent the unified voice of business in the travel and tourism sector in cooperative movement, so that we are planning some programs. This picture, you can see the office official comes the bureau. Our objective is to be the voice for travel and tourism sector of cooperative movement in Sri Lanka. This project is as a grassroots level in now. We are planning to give our services as educational and cooperative experience sharing programs by local cooperatives based on their foreign cooperative exposure. Now we couldn't do any programs because of the COVID-19. Now we are planning to do some programs via online. And we are planning to provide education opportunities, research and results to develop support cooperatives tourism industry. And because of this situation, we are doing some printing, distribution works and publications. We are ongoing project on this sector. And also, we are provide some guidance as a National Cooperative Council to support established new services, delivery and sectors related to tourism sector, such as new products and local products and organic farming like that. Product promotion in Sri Lanka, especially in Sri Lanka, there are some cultural programs and organic farming like that. And there are a lot of tourist destination areas. We can arrange some programs to tourists, corporate tourists to visit there. And like this program, we are planning to implementation new knowledge related to the tourism and educational and cooperative share and experience programs. Hence, we are planning to give some tourism sector cooperative members and local and international tours, and priority will be given to our cooperative members. The cooperative members can get the membership from us, and we can arrange some special programs to them to share their experience and give a lot of experience from the programs. And we have coordinate and arrange exposure visits to co-op-based organizations like SICTAB and ANCASA. We are planning to income generating programs to tourism sector for cooperative members, such as tourism villas and historical places and new products and local, and we are planning to arrange local and international tours and priority and given to the cooperative members. People can join with us, especially cooperatives and members of cooperative related cooperative tourism sector in the Asia Pacific region, and cooperative members and related to the tourism sector, producer cooperatives and its members, and cooperative members and non-members who wish to get foreign exposure. And especially, I would like to say, this is a new program, new project. It's in a grassroots level. We hope to get experience and help from the other people, other organizations like yours, so that hope you will give us to let us help to develop this program, so that hope you will be with us always. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jayamali. This was very good to know about the recently launched Cooperative Tourism Promotion Bureau. Of course, we'll have some time for questions and clarifications or discussions, which the group might want to ask you some questions about this newly launched initiative. Or maybe if you have certain comments for or to share specific experience with other colleagues here. In the second half of this webinar, we will have some time for the discussions. Thank you again for your presentation. With this, may I then call upon Mr. Rohan Clark, the director at Wayfairer Cooperative, who will speak to us about his experience of regenerative tourism in Australia. Rohan, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mark. And thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Jayamali, can you switch off the sharing screen so that Rohan can then...
I think I've just taken charge, so...
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much. I'd just like to echo and offer, our thoughts and prayers to our friends in India and elsewhere in the Asia Pacific region. I know it's a difficult time that currently. So we wanted to talk to Wayfairer Cooperative as an example of a practical example of a platform co-op in the tourism sector and how it can kind of promote regenerative tourism. So that was what I wanted to take you through today, which is this model of, which is effectively a competitor to something like Airbnb. So if this works, oh yes, there you go. So the problem that Wayfairer.coop is kind of addressing is that every year in Australia, there's $150 million that's paid to accommodation platforms like Airbnb, with those profits disappearing offshore, and those guys aren't even paying local tax. And so this extractive model leads to a hollowing out of local communities. So our local housing stock is being removed from the market, and there's a commoditization of destinations. And so the Wayfairer model seeks to address that. So it's a model where that capital stays in Australia and is reinvested in local communities and the tourism sector. So that's at the heart of what we're trying to do. So this is the concept of regenerative tourism. So it's a model which, in this case, the Wayfairer model, that aligns guests, hosts, and tourism organisations to come together to build local communities, rather than to extract profits and for private purposes. So just to explain what this model looks like, the Wayfairer platform, it's effectively comprised of two components. There's the cooperative booking platform itself. So that's, think of Airbnb, but it's cooperatively owned. It's owned by tourism organisations. Sorry, it's owned by tourism organisations and its employees. And the other part of the model is there's the Wayfairer Foundation. And that's a charitable trust that independently manages the social investment in tourism projects. And the way this works is that the revenue that's generated through bookings is divided equally between Wayfairer Co-operative to pay for the operating costs of that platform, and between the Wayfairer Foundation, which then invests that money in tourism projects. So under the model, the guest pays the same as what they would pay under Airbnb, but 50% of that revenue is now going to tourism, local tourism projects, and hence recycling that capital to regenerate in a regenerative way. So you can see how this creates a model where everyone's pulling in the same direction. The platform is owned by members who are positively motivated to promote healthy tourism in the region. The hosts are now offering their properties to the benefit of guests and the community via the project fees. And those guest fees, because they invested in tourism projects, connect the hosts and guests with the local community. So just to take you through how it works very briefly, for the platform, community. And so the way to do that is to bring them into the community in an aligned way. So the first step that we're, and so this is starting up in Australia, and the way that we're building this is, what we need to do is to start by attracting hosts that are aligned to the model. So the process that we're undertaking to do that is that we're engaging with local communities to identify those organisations and businesses in a local community that are already deeply committed to kind of building local community wealth, if you like. And our objective is to engage them and their networks to help us identify hosts and projects that can flow into the project. So it's very much a hub and spoke strategy. You can imagine we identify a business, and then we try and to tap into their network. To give you an example, here's Trevor on the right. So Trevor is a head chef at a highly regarded restaurant in Gippsland in Victoria. And his restaurant only serves locally produced food, basically. So he draws on the produce of the area. And through that, he's got this tightly aligned network. And our objective is to arrange events to gather those supporters together, and through that process to identify signature hosts, so like hosts who are attracted to this model, and also to identify tourism projects that we can identify in. So it's very much a grassroots driven strategy. So step one is to attract the hosts. So assuming we've got properties that guests want to stay at, our next step is to attract guests. And this becomes the role of the cooperative. So the cooperative seeks to do two things. In Australia in particular, we're looking to leverage that existing community network. So post-COVID, there is a lot of local travel. And so to tap into that local travel, we're coming at it from two perspectives. One is we're again going back out through those networks that exist within that local community. And the second is to drawing on those kind of identifying those niche communities that might be attracted to that market. We're marketing through media and social media channels. So again, you can see this in the example that we used before. So this is a picture from Hoggett's kitchen. It's a bit hard to see, but like it's a blackboard, and on that blackboard there's a list of all the producers, all the products that they're using from local producers. And Instagram very helpfully kind of adds a tag for those, it identifies accounts by those based on those names. And so what you can see here is that, like, not only does Trevor have his own network, but he's effectively a network of networks, because each of those of the businesses he deals with is a highly aligned business which has its own network. And so part of our objective is to tap into that network in order to draw guests to the local region. So what I'm trying to describe is very much a grassroots model to enable investment in the local community through tourism. So the third part of this is, like, we've got our hosts and our guests have come and stayed. Now when they have to choose which project they're going to support. So the way this works is when the guest is checking out, they get the choice between 3 projects that they can choose from, and one of those projects will receive the funding in relation to their stay. So this is the role of Wayfairer Foundation. It works with local community foundations to find projects, tourism projects that will deliver impact to the region. It then enables those guests to select the projects when they're checking out. And then, really importantly, it monitors and reports on the outcomes of those projects. And this is something Airbnb can't do. It then creates an enduring relationship with the guests, because it's got a reason to report back to the guests on how these projects are going. And these projects are, by virtue of the fact of the alignment that's been created and the fact that the guest chose that project, there's this kind of natural connectivity between the guest community and the project. So again, just to give you a sense of what that looks like, in Gippsland, there's a food and wine project that talks to, an East Gippsland food and wine festival. There's some dinosaur bones that's been and fossils that have been discovered in the region that need some investment in order to turn into kind of a tourist destination. And there's lots of natural bushland that you can bushwalk through, and there's some investment that's required to restore some tracks. So that was just to give you a sense of what this model looks like. And one of the reasons for bringing it, talking about today, is that this model is very simple. It's simple to execute, and it's actually easily replicable. We're using a software platform that's been built out of France. So it's software as a service. So it's very scalable, if you like, and so we can see that it's possible this model could be replicated in other regions quite simply. And of course, we'd be, in the spirit of cooperation amongst cooperatives, we'd be happy to share our experiences to help make that happen if that's of benefit. So that's it from me. Back to you, Mohit.
Thank you so much again, Rohan. I think all of us now definitely better understand the whole concept of regenerative tourism, and indeed building upon community wealth and community assets while, of course, working with cooperatives. Very interesting indeed, and I'm sure many of the participants would have some questions or would need to discuss further with you, Rohan. Maybe we'll come back in the discussion round. And now, of course, we move to back to ISTO, our friends from the International Social Tourism Organization. We have first, of course, Mr. Charles Etheny Bellinger, who's the director at ISTO, who will speak to us a bit more about responsible community-based tourism, and followed after him will be Mr. Maurizio Davolio, who's the vice president at ISTO, and of course, with his very rich experience working with the cooperative movement in his country and broadly across Europe, we will get to know a bit more upon how cooperative tourism can be worked in your different parts of the country. Over to you, Charles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mohit, and good morning or good afternoon, everyone. We're very happy to have this webinar in partnership with ICA-EU Pacific. It's our first, I would say, cooperation in this field, and certainly not the last. As far as I'm concerned, I would like to talk about the place of responsible and fair tourism within ISTO. As Isabel, our president, mentioned it to you, historically, the first mission of ISTO was and still to promote better access to travel, leisure, and holidays for all. But during the last few years, we realized that we couldn't just take into account the demand side of tourism, but that we also had to focus on the supply side. That's why in 2017, we reorganized our statutes, and it's clearly written that ISTO decided to widen its scope of action to the responsible and solidarity tourism. And at that time, we merged with the European Alliance for Responsible Tourism and Hospitality Network that was created by my colleague Mauricio, who will speak after me. And in our statutes, it's also clearly written that promoting and supporting the different forms of tourism that benefit people, communities, and the development of local area and related to responsible solidarity, fair and community-based tourism. So there is a clear recognition of fair tourism in our statutes. That's the first step, but it was already there in our ISTO key reference document, which is the Montreal Declaration towards a humanist social vision of tourism. And there are several articles making reference to this. For instance, when we say host communities should have access to their own tourism resources and leverage the benefits of tourism. Another one mentioning that we have to encourage tourism operators and visitors to support development projects in the local host communities. And another one, integrate local nonprofit development association, NGOs, and enterprise in the social and solidarity economy. So all this to say that there is a full recognition by ISTO of this sector. Now, after the words, what is the reality? Out of 160 members within ISTO, we have at least 30 organizations which are directly active in the field of responsible and fair tourism. We have some national networks. I would like here just to show you a few examples. We have the Association of Fair and Solidarity Tourism called ATES in France, which is one of the most well-recognized association in this field. The Italian Association of Responsible Tourism, whose chairman is also Mauricio in Italy. The Federation of Responsible Tourism Organization in Benin in West Africa. The Association of Fair responsible tourism in Madagascar, the Bolivian network of solidarity and community tourism, Red Tusoko, Bolivia, and the network of rural community tourism in Nicaragua. So we have umbrella organization belonging to ISTO, but also several individual members or specialized operators and agencies working in rural tourism, ecotourism, technical cooperation, certification, conservation, and so on. But as it's written, we only have so far 2 members in Asia, one in Kyrgyzstan and another one in Nepal. And we'll talk later about this during the question and exchange period, I guess. But obviously, we would like to share and have extend our network, I would say, in Asia, because we know there are many stakeholders involved in this field. Now, some actions regarding ISTO in this field. Well, when we decided to open our organization to responsible and fair tourism stakeholders, we created a specific commission, also shared by Mauricio, whose purpose is really to support the development of network at national level with some advice, advocate with public stakeholders, it's really important, and also exchange and disseminate best practices. This is the main topic of this commission. Another important action we had over the years is that ISTO was an official partner of the International Forum on Fair and Responsible Tourism. I think that this forum, which has taken place, as you can see, in different countries, has been one of the most important events, gathering all type of organization and people specialized in this field. The last one took place just before the beginning of the pandemic in Morocco in 2020 in the Ouarzazate, in the southern part of Morocco. And the most important work made by our Commission on Responsible and Fair Tourism has been the publication of a guide on good practices called Tourism as a Development Tool, 20 examples of responsible and fair tourism around the world. It's been published last year, and this publication presents you 20 cases from Africa, Asia, Europe, and Latin America that have been selected on on specific criteria that you can see here. Integration of population and stakeholders during the creation and implementation of the project, benefits of the project for the local population, economic viability and sustainability in the project, environmental practices and commitments in the project, and autonomy and sustainability in terms of employment management, plus the involvement of women, young people with disabilities, and the innovation aspect of the project. So based on all those criteria, we have selected 20 good practices. And here it's just one example, precisely in Asia, in India, more precisely, which is the Tourism Cooperative Society for the Development and Promotion of Meghalaya Village in India. Maybe some of you know this experience. So each case is presented with, you have the keywords, a brief description, the connection with the Sustainable Development Goals, and some figures about the number of visitors or beneficiaries for each project. This publication is available on our website. Now, there are three type of needs I identify that I would like to share with you also for our discussion later. The first one, I think, in this field is really the necessity to reinforce cooperation among international organizations and network. And I think this is why we are together here today. The second one is the need for greater recognition and support from national and regional tourism administration, especially in emerging economies. Let's hope that after the pandemic, public authorities will be more aware about the importance and the benefits of this type of tourism, and not look only after international, international, I would say, traditional tourists and visitors. I think that the case we just saw with that Juan showed us is a really good example about how this type of tourism can bring benefits to local communities. This is really important. And the last one is the need to take more importance and have more visibility within the social economy movement. I know that tourism, and it's probably the reality within the International Cooperative Alliance movement, I mean, tourism doesn't play such a big part. There are other sectors such as agriculture, banking, and so on, who are much more important. But we believe that tourism should have a greater place in the social economy movement, because it is an important sector worldwide and in many regions. And it's not reflected as it should be in the social economy movement worldwide. So I just expose it to you, and we will be happy to exchange about it after that. Thank you for your attention. And now we will continue with my colleague, Mauricio Davolio. So Mauricio, the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you, Charles. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I'm the Vice President of ISTO and the President of the Italian Association for Responsible Tourism. But I would like to stress that within AITR, I represent the main cooperative organization in Italy, Lega-coop. And probably somebody remembers that I can say in a previous life, I was the president of TICA, the sector organization, tourism sector organization of the International Cooperative Alliance. So there are very strong relationships between ISTO and the cooperative movement. So please go on. The next one. So I want to present today the links, the relationship that are between ISTO and the values of cooperative movement. There are a lot of points of connection between ISTO and the cooperative movement. For example, the centrality of the human person and his or her needs, the creation of job opportunities, the participatory democracy, the concern for community problems, the roots in the territory, the fairness and the distribution of revenues, the community participation in decision-making processes, the gender equality, the defense of the local culture, and more recently, the commitment to environmental sustainability has been added to these values. Next, please. You can see a picture of our project in Bolivia, managed by cooperative Lega-coop and some local organization. So the community-based tourism is an example of the involvement of cooperative movement in tourism. Community-based tourism shares the same principles. It defends local tradition and authenticity, favors a friendly and convivial relationship between the host and the guest. Often the profits generated by the tourism activity are destined to useful initiatives and actions for the whole community, and this is a principle of cooperatives, the so-called external mutuality. You can see here the guidebook. I wrote this guidebook in Ethiopia for a small area of Ethiopia, Lake of Wenchi, and our partner in Ethiopia is WETA. WETA is a cooperative, a member of ICA Africa. Please. So, which are the possibility for collaboration between ISTO and the cooperative movement? A lot. We think that there are a lot of possibilities. International cooperation. For example, we are members of the NGO of the Lega-coop in Italy called the Halieus, and Halieus is, through his president, is a member of the executive committee of the International Cooperative Development Platform belonging to ICA. And then collaboration relationship can be created between ISTO and the ICA Asian Pacific International Cooperative Development Platform in order to manage a project together in the Asian countries. So this is a list of our possibilities for collaborating. Please, next.
Sorry.
No, it's the last. It was the last one. So thank you for listening, and we'll be available for questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maurizio, and really great to learn about the history of the collaboration between ISTO and ICA in several countries that you just highlighted. With this, actually, we are now opening the floor to discussions, and if you would like to have any questions or any specific comments to the presentations made, I know we already have quite a few of the ICA members in the region who haven't yet spoken here in the room, especially from Malaysia, from Vietnam, from Korea. So of course, please take this opportunity to maybe just raise your hand or unmute your mic and let us know if you would like to make any comments or share any experiences, or just in general reflect upon the presentations made before the next iteration. Sorry, I cannot see any hands raised yet. But I do remember that we have our colleague, Mr. Shea, here from the National Agriculture Cooperative Federation in Korea, who's been working around the cooperative tourism sector in Korea and Malaysia. So, Mr. Shea, if you would like to just share your brief experiences in this space.
Hear me? Can I speak on behalf of Malaysia? Since
sure.
I didn't see Datuk Muhammad Ali Hassan is around. Datuk?
Oh yeah, I think he's just back.
Yeah, Datuk, can you please?
Yeah.
Datuk Ali Hassan, can you actually, on behalf of Malaysia, please?
What's the question? Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Sorry, Mr. Ali Hassan. We were just now in open session where we are inviting participants who would like to make any reflections on the presentations made so far, or of course, in general, share experiences about the tourism cooperatives sector in their country, and especially in the post-pandemic world. If you would like to share any experiences on that note, this is a good opportunity to just maybe.
Okay, okay, Mr. Mohit. Thank you for the opportunity. First, let me congratulate all the speakers for giving us a chance and opportunity to discuss their views and perhaps to highlight some of the possible regeneration of cooperative tourism. We welcome those ideas actually. So what we like to share, or I would like to question, for example, are we stressing on sustainable cooperative tourism? What's so different between sustainable cooperative tourism with social tourism that have been highlighted? And also, what is so special of fairer tourism than what we are practicing actually in line with cooperative tourism? That's number one. Number two, how do we like to really what we call interfere or let the opportunity of cross-border tourism during this COVID time? This, I think, is difficult. We need time, or I guess it depending on how we can overcome this COVID situation. Whatever it is, I think we can plan now. Plan perhaps in line with the cooperative principles of working together, SDGs principle of sustainable tourism. I think we can work either for us, for example, in Malaysia, we are encouraging domestic tourism. And then maybe after a year, I guess maybe I'm very positive about this thing. Maybe after a year, we can do international cooperative tourism. We, for example, have started familiarization cooperative trips between Malaysia and Korea. And we are trying to draw up programs, international cooperative tourism between countries. I welcome the idea that the National Cooperative Tourism in Sri Lanka has put up the cooperative bureau, but I hope we can work together and maybe establish an international Asia-Pacific cooperative tourism committee or sector that can draw up a kind of plan, program, finance, and situation. To share with you, for example, in Malaysia, we have problems like other parts of the world, especially during this COVID-19. I'm sure the experiences in other countries similar like Malaysia, where tourism sector, including cooperative tourism sector, is highly affected. A lot of hotels, cooperative hotels, also some of it been closed, and some, for example, cancellation and even opportunities of work, labor intensive or labor opportunities are being curtailed. So what we are doing, I think it is high time. I think it's about time. Maybe it's blessing in disguise. We are looking inward. So when we are looking inward, and the government to encourage domestic tourism, but our problem is because of the restriction in traveling. Even in domestic tourism, there is a restriction in traveling. So from the perhaps high income state to low income state, although you have low income purchasing power, but you can't travel. So opportunity for tourism is very restricted. But we build our networking. We in Malaysia, for example, build up various co-op networking or networks. We call it co-op hotel. It's our own local brand, just like any other perhaps specialized institution. So we have branded in such a way. We have a special logo. We have special privilege for members. We have given some kind of opportunities for members to attend. Yeah, maybe I can show Co-op Hotel logo, for example.
But wait.
This, and then we have all the hotels. They are within our inspiration and aspiration. I will brand in such a way. We have Co-op Spa. We have Co-op Lodge. We have Co-op pharmacy. We have also Co-op Galaxies. These are what? Sorry. Lodges also and others.
Co-op stay and co-op travel.
Co-op stay. And we are moving out into that direction, a kind of working together. We're trying to build up a kind of what is called guidelines, and then what called some kind of networking, and then standardization. Like hotel, for example, I think we are formulating like how can we encourage Muslim-friendly hotel, and then to encourage all, not only Muslim, but all that to be on the safe side. In fact, now we are emphasizing to kind of grading or making sure a kind of certification to our hotel and accommodation places that we are sure that it's safe, secure, and what we call convict-free to stay. So these are the things that we are doing in Malaysia. So we welcome this opportunity. We welcome this webinar. We welcome the idea of putting a kind of a general working together and networking in cooperative tourism. And hopefully, after the COVID situation is over, we can boost up the activities. Right now, I think we can plan together. It's good time for us to plan together and perhaps draw up a master plan for us to work together to make sure cooperative tourism sector can survive and can be of need to all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hassan. That's really kind of you to share your experiences from Malaysia. Of course, such a diverse portfolio of cooperative tourism sectors that you're already working in. And of course, also reflecting upon the presentations already made. Maybe I can check with our colleagues at ISTO and Wayfairer if you want to share any reflections on this discussion so far.
Yes, if I may. Well, first of all, thank you for the comments.
Yeah, thank you.
If I understood correctly, the main question was, what is the difference between social tourism and responsible tourism? If I understood one of the part of the questions. So for what we understand, social tourism is, let's say, what we do. And it focuses on the demand with the support in 95% of the cases of the governmental and government policies. And whereas responsible tourism would be on how we do it, and it focuses mostly on the supply, just like my colleague Charles was saying. It's how we do things in a responsible way. How do we execute the tourism itself? How do we operate in a way responsible? Responsible meaning sustainable for the community, economically, and nature and the environment. So I am not sure if that answers a bit more the question. And then regarding, yes.
Isabel, actually, it's in line with what is cooperative tourism, sustainable tourism. It's definitely social, definitely
Yes.
responsible. That is what sustainable cooperative tourism. So it's the same. It's
Good.
not much different. We are together, basically.
Yes, yes. And then regarding the cross-border tourism, I think we all have this common concern, I think, and I think we all depend on the vaccinations and how each country evolves in facing the COVID to be able to open cross-border tourism. But I think that's also an opportunity, because in many occasions, local tourism and domestic tourism is sort of a plan B for many tourism providers. They are always looking for the foreigner tourist that comes in, that is supposed to have a bigger budget for his trip, and that the money he spends on the country once that he visits is higher than the local tourism. And since we have kind of no choice right now, and we have to lean on domestic tourism, I think this is also a big opportunity to really take care of our local tourists, but also work with the offer itself in that sense, to create a specific product and to be more flexible and to be more open to domestic tourism. And in that sense, I think that the model that Rohan Clark was presenting from Wayfairer was super interesting. I really liked it, and actually I am going to make a question to him. If you can only just give a few seconds in case Charles or Mauricio want to add something to what I said. But I would love to know if your cooperative has the governmental support. How do you face commercialization, which I think is one of the key challenges when it comes to cooperatives and small and medium companies that do not have the budget for of these other huge companies like Airbnb and Booking that you were mentioning, and they simply cannot reach a market, and they have to use these huge platforms because they just don't have the means. And in a way, these two models compete with each other. So I would love to hear on how you compete with these platforms. Yes, I hope I answered your questions.
Isabel, are you asking me or asking the public? Can hear you.
I am asking Rohan Clark.
Rohan Clark, okay.
Sorry, Charles, did you have anything that you?
Please go. Maybe I will come back after. Please go.
Okay. Really good question as to government support. So we're about to start a pilot, and that pilot has government support through. Actually, it's called the Smart Specialisation Program, which was actually come out of Europe, and there's only 2 locations in Australia that's being pursued. And so my understanding of the Smart Specialisation kind of framework is it's very much rooted in developing local business, looking for leveraging local kind of specialities and expertise to kind of build regions. So anyway, so one of the regions in Australia that's adopting that strategy is Gippsland. And so Gippsland have seen this model and said it fits perfectly with what we're trying to achieve. So so in answer to your question, yep, we do have government support to test the model. Then ultimately it comes down to alignment. So what because you're absolutely right that as opposed to a commercial entity that can raise capital at no cost in the current market, cooperatives can't do that. The way that cooperatives raise capital is through effectively retaining profits or engaging the community to trigger effectively social buying, group buying power. And so it's the second that we're starting with. But by creating that alignment with our tourism organisations, so the members of the cooperative are the tourism destination boards across, there's 50 of them across Australia, and they are perfectly aligned, and they have a budget from the local communities to support developing tourism in the local region. So by creating the alignment of having them as members, we're actually leveraging their resources to get into the local community. And so to the extent that that model is replicable in other parts of the world, we've got someone from Indonesia with us today, Hira, and we've looked at that model in Indonesian context and said, oh, would it work in that context? So that's one of the things one of the ways we'd like to overcome that particular challenge, because you're absolutely right. The likes of Airbnb have infinite resources in comparison. Charles, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. No, it's your experience is really interesting, as Isabel said, and I'm sure that other regions or countries might be interested to replicate your model. I don't know if you had received some requests in that sense from other parts of the world or other countries.
As I say, we're really open to. So the way we see it kind of developing is there's a potential for a federated model globally, where there's some there's cooperative sharing cooperatively. We kind of see that there would be probably sufficient differences that you'd want to tailor your cooperative to the local region, the local legal, the local needs. But at its core, the model is replicable, that idea of 50-50 and the foundation. And so really happy. So we have had a couple of conversations with people. This came out of, the original idea actually came out of Italy. Maurizio, you'd be perhaps familiar with Airbnb, which was a similar type model. Their model is not predicated on that. The point of difference, I guess, is the members, the cooperativeness is slightly different. We fundamentally believe you create alignment with the local region by having the local region have ownership, whether it's a local council, local government, or in our case, destination member, like tourism boards. So that's the point of difference, if you like. But this model, that idea of revenue sharing is such a cooperative kind of model that it can be replicated.
Okay, Mohit, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I just saw that Mr. Shubyong Che wanted to intervene a bit and share some of his experience from Korea. I'm not sure if he's now able to. He was facing some technical issues back then. Mr. Sheikh, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we are able to hear you now. Please.
I just want to ask you a question about what I usually think about sustainable travel. I think it is very important to consult with the government to link sustainable travel with school education. If school use travel cooperative products for group trips, it can be an opportunity for travel cooperatives to go and students to experience sustainable travel. Once students experience sustainable travel, obstacles to future sustainable travel can disappear. I wonder if the ISTO has experience in cooperation with educational institutions. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shea. Charles, would
you want to share, Mohit?
Yes, please. Yes, Mr. Hassan, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to share our experience in programming or working on the school cooperative tourism. Okay. We in Malaysia, in most secondary schools, have school cooperative. Almost 95% have school cooperative. One of the activities of the school cooperative is school tourism. They conducted various tourism for their children, for the youth, or for the school children, domestically and internationally. They have programs to invite what are various schools from overseas to come to Malaysia and experience various aspects of life in Malaysia, cultures, religion, nature, and handicraft, and various such things. And I think we are very happy. In fact, we are very successful in running school cooperative, especially school cooperative tourism. And anybody want to have some kind of experience, we welcome to show or to give kind of guidelines how to conduct school cooperative tourism. Because I think school tourism, we encourage them to plan. We encourage them kind of leadership. We kind entrepreneurship. And then we also help them to motivate, to help each other, and to see themselves what the countries have, what the other countries have, and exchange various measures that can benefit it to all. I'm sure school tourism is a good base for us to start tourism in cooperative.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan. Would our colleagues also from ISTO want to respond to the query from Mr. Sheikh?
Yeah, Mohit, sorry, but would it be possible to repeat the question? Not sure we understood well.
Yeah, Mr. Sheikh, can you repeat the question? I understand it was around cooperatives and educational institutions. How are you promoting tourism with educational institutions? But maybe if you'd like to reframe your question. I don't know if Mr. Sheikh...
Well, maybe, yeah, if it's related to education, it's good that you mention it because several of our members, in fact, are not only tourism operator, but are really active in what we call educational or educative tourism. Let me give you a very simple, a very concrete example. You know, the youth hostel model, it's been there for several decades around the world. In countries like Germany, where you have more than 400 youth hostels, the German Youth Hostel Federation is a partner of the Ministry of Education. Why? Why? Because they are not only providing accommodation, I mean beds and food. No, they are receiving a lot of young people, school groups who go there as part of their school pattern, if I can say. So it means that the youth hostel, they provide also educational programs. So so this is something really important to mention. So and many other organizations want to develop these educational and cultural aspect of tourism. It's really important. In some of our members represent Holiday Village. So Holiday Village is not like the Club Med, you know. These Holiday Village receive families and they have trained people who will take care of kids, young people, teenagers, with a set of activities linked to sport, cultural activities, environmental education, and so on. So this is a big difference, you know. It's not only, again, providing accommodation and food. It's much more than this. That's why, in some case, we believe that public support, financial support from public authorities can be justified because these organizations have invested in these educational and cultural programs for young people, and they also receive people with specific needs, you know, let's say people with a disability, for instance, which requires more attention. So this is what I wanted to say, but just as an additional comment, I would like to say that here through ISTO, and this is why we are very interested to engage cooperation with Asia. We have a lot of governments and with experience in social policies of tourism. So it means that they are provided through some programs more opportunities for specific group. I mean, low-income families, students and young people, seniors and retired people, and people with disabilities. They have programs allowing them to travel. And by this program, of course, you have a big social benefit, but of course, an economic also benefit. So this is here the key issue, is to say that you can combine social and the economic aspect. And of course, when it's developed in a sustainable way with SDG principles and so on, like Wayfairer model, then you can connect the social policies of tourism or the social tourism. You can connect it with the community-based tourism, you know. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much again, Charles. Point well taken, and the overlap, of course, between social tourism, sustainability, of course, cooperative tourism, and how regeneration of all these communities and giving back to these communities is the concept that we are also trying to understand and, of course, pilot in Australia now. Very interesting conversations indeed, but I'm also a bit mindful about the time. I think we are almost close to the closing remarks as such before we draw a meeting to the close. But I just wanted to check, of course, one last time, if there's anyone who would like to make any final comment or reflect upon the discussions so far before we move to the closing remarks. Okay, I think we have no other comments so far. And of course, there have been some interactions going on in the chat box. These have also been well noted. And of course, we will be making sure that we circulate the recording of this webinar and also the discussions that have taken place to make sure that we move forward on the discussions and keep a tab of how we are progressing. Again, I take this opportunity to thank you all for being a wonderful audience and participating in this webinar, and of course, sharing your experiences, your very rich experiences from different parts of the world. I then hand over the floor to Mr. Balasubramanian Iyer, Regional Director, ICA-AP, for the closing remarks. And maybe one last time before we all leave, I'll request you to please switch on your cameras so that we will take the last final photographs and share with you all after the recordings are circulated. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mr. Balu.
Okay, thank you, Mohit. Let me also thank all the speakers for your thoughts and prayers. Yes, we are going through a bad patch in India, and I'm sure with your thoughts, prayers, we will get over this wave as quickly as possible. I was just looking at the concept note as you all were speaking, and and it starts with a couple of figures, which says that in the Asia Pacific region, 454 1.8 million international tourists arrived in 2018. And that's only international. I don't think this figure is talking about domestic travel. And these tourists spent close to US dollars 712.3 billion. Both these are again staggering numbers. And the question is, how much have cooperatives, people who are working in the social sector, social tourism area, and what Rohan mentioned, not on the extractive side, but in the more inclusive side, how much have we actually been able to tap into this? So I think the market and the opportunity is immense, especially given what we've been talking about, the language. We've been talking about being inclusive, we've been talking about being sustainable, we've been talking about the community first. So I think all this is what resonates. These are things which also resonates with tourists these days, especially after what we've gone through the pandemic and the post-pandemic. People are realizing that we have this small place called Earth, which we need to see how we can preserve, how we can sustain it, not just for this generation, but for future generations. So I think the language which we talk resonates, and there is immense potential. And I'd like to thank our speakers from ISTO, Isabel Noah, Charles Etienne, and Mauricio for sharing. You all have mentioned about your 4S model of solidarity, sustainable, socially responsible, safe, which again resonates, like Dr. Haliasan mentioned, resonates with some of the cooperative values and principles. I'd like to see, I saw during your presentations, I was looking for Asia, and I see that you just have 2 countries from this vast continent, one from Kyrgyzstan and one from Nepal. Again, these are 2 very good countries, have a lot to offer in terms of tourism, but then in the region. So I'd like to see how we can engage more with you all going forward, connect our members, because our members, for example, like Madhushi Jayamali from Sri Lanka, talked about the Bureau, wish that Bureau the very best. And they are starting, and I'm sure they can learn a lot from the experience that you all have. Also like to thank Rohan Clark for the platform cooperative in the model, which he's trying to promote, which is seen as authentic, sustainable, inclusive, again resonates with what we are talking about. And of course, Dato Ali Hassan for talking about the Malaysia experience. And important point which was raised was in terms of how we look at school educational institutions, school cooperatives, that they say the younger you start talking about some of these issues, the more we ingrain it. So I think schools are a very good place to start, and you already are doing it with Singapore, Thailand, and other countries. There's a lot which we've talked about in terms of the common, many C's which we talked about. One is common interest to learn, address our common challenges. Other C was the community. How do we put the community, focus on the local? How do we network communities? Culture, another C, how we restore local culture, how do we recognize local culture. For tourists, again, need to understand what it means, the local culture, the importance. So again, that's something which the cooperatives themselves have been recognized by the UNESCO as a cultural identity. So, so culture is ingrained in us. So I think it's very important to talk about culture. Cooperation, reinforce it within and across countries. Right now, within a country, but soon across countries. How do we collaborate actively? I think there are a lot of learnings, a lot of interesting experiences, and I'm sure some of our members would like to also know more about what you all are doing. And I already heard that in Australia we are engaging with Indonesia. Similarly, there's interest in other countries. So I think this sector has immense potential. When we talk about cooperatives as a business enterprise, when we talk about cooperation among cooperatives, when we talk about education and cooperative principles, So you're right, it was rightly pointed out that we don't see much about tourism in ICA, but we need to talk more. Definitely, yes, we need to. And I'm sure, at least from the Asia Pacific region, we made a start, and we look forward to seeing how we can engage with each one of you and with our members in the region to help connect and see how we can promote this very needed sustainable tourism going forward. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Mohit, for coordinating and keeping us on time. And so I look for, thank you again, and stay safe wherever you are, and take care. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for a very insightful discussion. We've also taken some pictures, but if you can still switch on your cameras, we'll have more smiling faces in the midst of these very difficult times indeed, to share and spread some more happiness. Yeah, great. I see some more who have just switched on the camera and taking a few more pictures. Please bear with me. Okay.
This is like how in tourist spot you take a selfie. So think about it.
All right, last one.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
So much.
Thank you, Mohit. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.